Michael, thank you very, very much for once again joining us with MGEU. Could you tell us a little bit about who Michael Redhead Champagne is?
Thank you very much for having me today. Michael Redhead Champagne is a 25-year-old Cree individual, originally from Shamattawa Cree Nation, but born and raised in the north end of Winnipeg. I am a founder and organizer with AO, Aboriginal Youth Opportunities, and a helper and organizer with the Idle No More movement.
Would you give us a sense of what Idle No More movement is and how it actually started? There's a lot of misconceptions out there, and we'd like to bring forward a little bit of the information.
Sure. The Idle No More movement got started from 4 women in Saskatchewan, 2 Indigenous women and 2 non-Indigenous women. And they were having a conversation about the Omnibus Bill C-45 and how it's very undemocratic and how it's harmful to our waters and our lakes and the protection of our environment. They took that conversation from online and brought it into a teach-in. And with that teach-in, what that did was it caught fire across the prairies on social media and across the world. And they talked a lot about how we as Indigenous people are being negatively affected by some of the decisions that are being made at the federal level. And another thing that was really important with Idle No More, there's an emphasis on peace. There's an emphasis on unity, of working together across the differences that we may have for the betterment of Canadian society. And there's a really spiritual base to Idle No More that I think people need to understand, where a lot of times we look at our world from a physical and an emotional and even a mental perspective, but we don't often look at it from a spiritual perspective, and that's what Idle No More challenges Canadians to do.
So, Michael, many people have drawn comparisons between the Idle No More and Occupy Wall Street. Is this a fair comparison?
I would say that there are some very important differences between Occupy and Idle No More, where Occupy had a focus really on economy and financial issues, which are topics that I think are very much comfortable for individuals like our Conservative government. Idle No More is really about conservation of the land, responsible stewardship of the land, protection of the water, and acknowledging the spirit and listening to teachings. So there is a fundamental difference between the two movements, and I think Idle No More has a lot more sustainability to it because, I mean, Indigenous people have been talking about these issues since forever.
So, Michael, could you tell me why should Canadians care about Idle No More, and how do these issues affect them in their community and in their daily lives?
Well, I think all Canadians need to be concerned about Idle No More and the issues that it raises. Really what we're talking about is opposing omnibus legislations like Bill C-45. And what they do is they negatively impact our environment by putting our waterways at risk of being developed in unsustainable ways. What it does is it undermines the democracy of our elected officials. And it really, if Aboriginal people aren't doing well here in Canada, that's something that affects every Canadian. If you're not doing well, that's something that affects me. So it's important for us to be working together and really practicing the unity that is at the heart of Idle No More.
Michael, could you tell me about the leadership within Idle No More?
Well, I think it's important to understand that Idle No More is a leaderless movement. So even me having this conversation with you today, I am not proposing to be the leader of Idle No More, even locally here in Manitoba. It really is a leaderless movement, and while the founders still remain very much a part of the development of Idle No More, there is no spokesperson. There is no individual who calls the shots for Idle No More. And while the chiefs have been vocal, many of them in support of Idle No More, I think it's important to remember that it is a people's movement. And it's made up of the grassroots. And yes, the chiefs are part of it, but so are you, and so are all of individuals in Canada that breathe air and drink water. It really has created a space for young Indigenous people such as myself to come forward and speak on behalf of our communities. There are a lot of young, educated people that are stepping forward in Idle No More, talking about the importance of not only acknowledging natural law and Indigenous teachings, but also being very well versed in legislation and issues that are relevant to economic development as well.
Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on what needs to be done on the Indian Act?
Well, I think that Idle No More has really broadened in perspective since that initial kickback to Bill C-45, and really is talking a lot about Indigenous rights and Indigenous sovereignty. And so when it comes to the Indian Act, I think Idle No More is really looking to have that piece of, from many of our perspectives, that piece of racist legislation removed and replaced with something that is, has been put together in consultation directly with First Nations people, and not just First Nations leadership, but also the grassroots as well.
Michael, you have a pretty strong history of organizing within the Aboriginal movement, particularly the young folks. How have you been able to bring this forward within Idle No More?
It's important to remember that because of the leaderless nature of Idle No More, we try as much as we can to listen to what's happening in other areas of the country. And so from time to time you will find there are national days of action that come up where there are coordinated efforts across the country. So what we do in Manitoba is try to just coincide with what's happening on a national and even global, at this point, a global scale. But really what my role has been to help facilitate dialogue, to help kind of workshop amongst the organizers, get feedback, work on what our communications are. Like, what are we going to be saying to one another? What are we going to be saying to groups as we emphasize education? And how are we actually going to organize those educational opportunities, which are at the heart of Idle No More? How are we going to organize them in an accessible way, but also in a way that keeps the momentum going?
And there's the next question. How will you keep the momentum going?
Yeah, well, we're really hoping to focus on education and participation for all Manitobans in Idle No More. Now, we have a variety of activities and educational opportunities that are going to be happening across Manitoba. We are in the process of putting together a Manitoba-based curriculum where we talk about the themes as we see them from Manitoba that, again, talk about environmental protection, spiritual guidance, different types of federal and Indigenous laws and legislation. So all of those are really important to us moving forward in building the capacity of young people, of the volunteers that have been helping out, but also public awareness and bringing that education to everyone that is able to listen.
How would you characterize the reaction of the federal government to this movement?
I would characterize the reaction of the federal government to be pretty disappointing. I know that in January 2012, the Crown's First Nations gathering that happened was, called historic, and was supposed to reset the relationship between the Government of Canada and Aboriginal people. And from the grassroots perspective, that very much has not happened in any significant way. And we were expecting a meeting in January 2013 from the Prime Minister to report back to the Assembly of First Nations on what progress has been made. The January 11th meeting that happened between National Chief Atleo and Prime Minister Stephen Harper, I think, was a very necessary step in maintaining dialogue and creating that connectivity between the Aboriginal community and the Government of Canada. However, I don't think the Prime Minister or the government has responded in any significant way to Idle No More, and until we feel that has happened, the peaceful protests, the round dance, the teach-ins, the movement will continue.
So, Michael, has the media been fair on their reporting of Idle No More?
I don't think the media has been 100% fair in the way that Idle No More has been reported. I think it's a really complicated issue that we are trying to represent with Idle No More, and the if it bleeds, it leads nature of the media, I think, does not lend itself to what we're trying to accomplish. However, something that has happened with Idle No More is the emergence of citizen journalism and the concept that we are our own media. And it is us as the people, the grassroots people involved with Idle No More, that have to be sending the message by having conversations like this, by writing things on our blog, by posting information on our Facebook, by tweeting about it, right? When we do these things, we're raising awareness, but we are our own media because we can't depend on others to get the message across the same way that we mean it to be. They're not going to talk about spirit. They're not going to talk about honoring our women. They're not going to talk about protecting our land in the same way that we can do it by having this face-to-face conversation. So it's really important for us, the people, to speak for ourselves, because I think we are our own media.
So we've covered a lot of information here. If people want to show their support and actually get some more education on Idle No More, where would they go for this?
There's a few different things that people can do. I would say, number one, research the issues that we're discussing. You know, learn about what Omnibus Bill C-45 does. Learn a little bit about the Indian Act and the Canadian government's history of education with its Aboriginal people. Namely Indian residential schools, right? Educate yourself about these issues and why we are asking Canadians to join us in Idle No More. But even beyond that, I think it would be really helpful to see many, many more Canadians joining us by participating in the round dances, by participating in rallies, but also by coming and sharing their experiences at our teach-ins and lending their expertise and their knowledge and asking those questions. Of course, there is, you know, the really important aspect of where you get information from. So checking out idlenomore.ca is also pretty important, I think, for everyone, just to understand where the movement is coming from.
Okay. Well, we'd encourage everyone to do that. And thank you, Michael, very, very much.
Thank you for having me.
It's been wonderful to have you here today. Thank you.